to show you how I made these backgrounds using the new Concord 9th STAMPtember release stamp set. And this set is really fun because it features a lot of cute brushstroke images in it. So I'm going to be using this one here, but you can see there's a bunch of other ones that would be really fun to use to make these backgrounds. These are really easy backgrounds to make. This one I used just one color of ink pad and stamped it multiple times. And then this one here I used a few different colors and stamped them in a hue to create a really fun, colorful background. So let me show you how easy it is to do. So I have a piece of watercolor paper here. This is a smooth watercolor paper, and I find that it's really easy to get the nice stamped impressions on that smooth paper rather than a textured paper, but you could definitely use it on a textured paper. Here's some that I did with some splatters. This one I did without the splatters. So you can kind of see some different variations you can get by playing around with it. And you can also see that the colors are different in each one. The way that the colors dry on each of them is different. So you're not going to get the same results in each set that you make. So here's the stamp on my block. And I'm going to start off by stamping in an ink color. So here I'm going to use some picked raspberry. And in some of these, I actually used two different colors of ink. So like here, I used some worn lipstick and the picked raspberry and used them together. This time I'm just going to stamp with one. So if I ink up my block and get the entire stamp covered with the ink, I'm then going to go ahead and take some water and spritz the water onto that ink just to get the ink moving a little bit. So I used about 3 spritzes of water. Now I'm going to bring that over to my paper and stamp that down along the top here. I'm going to hold it in place so that way the water and the ink has a chance to just dry into the paper a little bit before I lift it off. So I'll go ahead and press that down good and then slowly lift that off. And you will get a little puddle of ink from wherever you went ahead and pulled the block off of your paper. But I actually really like that because it creates some really fun effects, such as this one here, it's still actually a little wet, but this one here is actually dry. And you can see it creates a darker spot, and it's a really neat effect for where it lifts up off of your block and the paper. Okay, so that's wet. And now I'm going to bring in another color of ink. I'm going to use some spiced marmalade. I'm going to go ahead and ink up my block, get that really covered. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to do something a little bit different. Now that I'm thinking about this, I think I'm actually going to go ahead and color with a lighter shade of pink and then blend that into the yellow. So let me do that. I'll pull in some worn lipstick here, ink up the block, and again, I'll spritz this with water. I used about 2 or 3 spritzes on each one. So I'll go ahead and stamp this down. And as I'm stamping this, it actually started to blend with that darker area of color that we had there. So that's helping it pull into the pink, and that's going to give us a nice gradation. I do like going ahead and stamping all subsequent colors of my different inks as everything is still wet. You could definitely get a much harsher impression if you let it dry and then stamp again, or if you say used a heat gun, dry this and then stamped. But I actually want the colors to blend. I want it to be a little bit softer. Okay, so now that I've stamped that one, I'm going to bring in some scattered straw. And I'll go ahead and ink that up. Again, spritz it with water, get that color moving, and I'll go ahead and stamp that down. And I'm also, as I'm stamping these onto the paper, I'm kind of shifting them back and forth, whether a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. And that's going to help make the background look a little bit more interesting. It's not going to be as, let's say, perfect. Okay, so I've added that one down. Now I want to bring in a slightly darker shade of orange. This is a spiced marmalade color. This was more of a yellowy orange. This is scattered straw. So I'll go ahead and ink up my block one more time, again spritzing it with water, and I'll stamp that down right about here. And I really love how these colors just blend together so nicely. This is a great technique with your distress inks. Okay, so there we go. So we have our background completely finished. And you can see just by using some stamps and some distress inks, you can get some amazing results with these brushstroke stamps. And again, you could do this with the other different stamps that are included in this set. So we've got circles, you have this smaller brushstroke, and then you have one that's more of a rectangle. These polka dot circles would make some really cool polka dotted backgrounds if you went ahead and stamped that multiple times. Okay, so here's a look at the backgrounds that I made using that stamp set. And you can also add some fun distressing if you wanted to. If you wanted to, say, take some of these backgrounds and spritz some water onto them and then lift off the color, you could definitely do that. Mine aren't completely dry yet, so I don't want to go ahead and do that because I don't want to lift off any of the actual color that's sitting there. But once they dry, you could definitely go ahead and add some water over these, and I may do that to a couple of them just to kind of get some different variations to my backgrounds. Okay, so I finished off my cards that I had made using those backgrounds with the Simon Says Stamp and Concord 9th stamp set. By the way, this stamp set, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, this is the Oh Hello set. And so I used, like I said, these little water brush marks to make the backgrounds, and then this is what I ended up with. So on this first card, I used the sentiments that are in the stamp set. I used Happy Everything and Wishing You. I stamped those onto some white cardstock, cut them out. I also stamped the Wishing You onto a little banner, and I added some pretty pink Posh sparkling clear confetti sequins in the background. Now, you'll also notice that this card base has a grid pattern on it, and I used the new Simon Says Stamp Grid Play background cling stamp. This is a fabulous cling stamp that makes a grid pattern, and I love using this for very clean and simple cards such as this. It just adds a slight bit of texture and gives the card just a little bit of interest. And I love how those sequins catch the light. Okay, so that was card number one. Here is, I actually created a couple of these. I made this one here, this one, and this one. So they all kind of look very similar to each other, but yet they're all each a little bit different. On all of the cards, this one included, I used these Memory Box Wrapped Stitches die set, which is a great die set that features a lot of dies that have a wrapped stitch appearance to them. Let me pull it out here so you can see. So it creates this really fun stitching detail on your panels. And I've got a whole set of them here. This is a really fun set, and I've been using this set like crazy. This one's the largest, and it fits the full A2 size card, which is what I did here. I cut the pink cardstock with that die, and then this one is the second largest in the set. So you can see you get a lot of use out of these dies. Okay, so that was how I did the background and then cutting out the panels. To create these gorgeous sentiments that have these beautiful colors and this nice great font, I used the Live Love stamp set, which is a really fun set that features some nice geometric images, but it also features some really bold sentiments, which I love. And it also features some smaller ones that you can pair up. And I know many of you are familiar with the quote that's out there. It goes something along the lines of live well, love often, laugh much. And I know I've seen some variations on it where it says live well, love much, laugh often. So you can kind of just mix up the sentiments and make it fit the way you'd like. So I did that on all of these. I used some Simon inks to stamp the different sentiments. I used black for the smaller sentiments, but then these larger block ones, I actually used some Simon dye ink. So like for instance, the orange is Clementine. I used Doll Pink for the darker pink. I used Deep Sea for the blue, Deep Purple for that purple color. I love that. And then I added on some of them, I don't know if you can see it there, but I added just a little bit of Wink of Stella glitter on top of the larger sentiments. And then these hearts are from Doodlebug's Shape Sprinkles. I really love these. I used the white hearts to go ahead and add those onto the bottom of each of my cards. On these two, I put the grid pattern from the Grid Play stamp set. But then on this one, I did something a little bit different. Instead of using the grid, I actually pulled out this brush stroke from the stamp set and stamped it in both some Simon Says Stamp clear ink, so the embossing ink, and I also used some Altenew blush ink. That created a neat tone-on-tone kind of texture onto the back of the card, and it really just makes the whole brush stroke feel just tied together. So it was a nice variation to the other cards that I did that have more of a geometric look. This one has more of a playful, watery colored look. Okay, one more card that I made with the set. This one's a little bit different. This one is very monochromatic, whereas the other ones are extremely colorful. This one I wanted it to kind of go along the lines of something a little bit more serious, not quite so happy and colorful. So I wanted something to be a little bit more muted and also a little bit more on the calmer side. So I took the watercolored panel that I did with the blue. I die cut it using the new Together die from Simon Says Stamp. That one here. After I die cut it, I didn't put any of the negative pieces in place because I actually liked the look of having those letters wide open. I also stamped one of the supporting sentiments from the Together stamp set. That's this one here. I stamped We're Stronger, and I actually stamped that, I don't know if you can see it, but I stamped it in the background as well. It's kind of like a ghosted image into the background. I wanted it to be kind of like overlaid and not something that's going to stand out, but just something that's going to kind of pull the whole design together. So I used that to kind of make those supporting sentiments in the background, kind of ghosted in, and then I heat embossed that same We're Stronger onto some black cardstock, and that one's going to be the help pull the whole sentiment together. So these help support the design, and this one really just calls it out. And then of course you can see I put the grid pattern on the background of the card as well, which was done with some teal cardstock from Lawn Fawn. So those were the cards that I made using the new Oh Hello stamp set from Concord 9th and Simon Says Stamp. Remember that this stamp set is a limited edition set, so once the set sells out, you won't be able to get it. So if you really like it, I would encourage you to head on over to the Simon Says Stamp shop to go ahead and pick it up. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more inspiration. I hope you enjoyed and have a great rest of the weekend, and I will see you tomorrow with more to share. Thanks for watching!